all our efforts in life, whatever we are trying to do in our life, mainly all those efforts are towards increasing the quantum of joy in our life. Correct? Whatever we do in life is towards increasing the quantity or magnitude, or because we cannot measure this, but subjectively what we all try to do is increase the happiness, increase the joy. So here comes the story of the musk deer. The musk deer is, having the gland, the special gland, the fragrance gland, so called as the musk. Where is this musk? It is in its own body. And that own body itself is producing the scent, because this musk is very delightful, right? Delightful scent. And this deer, the fascination of this scent, fascination of this heavenly fragrance, what this musk deer does, it roams in the forest, mountains, desperately searching for the source of this fragrance, source of this musk. Whereas it is unaware, right? It is unaware that the fragrance is coming from its own body, from a gland in its own body. So, and that is really causing the smell. But what happens in the process of searching? The deer exhausts itself ultimately. So this is the story or the life of a human seeker also. The musk deer is equivalent to the human seeker. And the fragrant musk, where is this musk? It is inside. It is inherent. The truth is within us. The whatever we are searching, so-called happiness, bliss. Shastram says, Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. And where is that? Yo Veda Nihidam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. Our real nature. That is the embodiment of the bliss, the happiness. And where is it? It's inside us. Nihidam Guhayam Parame Vyom. Hridaya Kuhar. It is within. It is in the deepest cave of our heart. So Srimad Bhagavatam says, Sada Nirasta Kuhagam Satyam Param Dhimahi. Always ever shining, ever effulging. And what we are doing, we are looking outside like the musk deer. Right? So, like the deer who is looking the fragrance outside in the world, what is this? This scent or this fragrance is the search that the deer is doing. And the search is happening externally. Similarly, we all are doing the external search for happiness, external search for fulfillment, external search for the truth. What is my own reality? We are looking outside. Whereas the source of bliss, the source of happiness, the source of fulfillment is essentially within us, within ourselves, not outside. Not outside in the external objects or the experiences. So here, though this story is very simple, we need to understand that the deer symbolizes the ignorance. Deer symbolizes the illusion. That what is that illusion? The source of fragrance, the source of smell is external. The deer is consistently looking the musk smell outside, though the smell is produced by the gland in the same body of the deer. So when I say the deer symbolizes the illusion or ignorance, that source of smell, when I say that source of smell, that source of happiness that we all are looking is within us, whereas we are seeking that externally. And what is the end result? Causing suffering or wandering in this world. So the simple truth is that the essence of life is within us. That is where the Purnada or Purnatvam. Adam Purna, Idam Purna. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyade. So what we are trying to do, that Purnada we are trying to seek from the worldly objects so called as Asat. Our Shraddha is where? Shraddha is in Asat. Shraddha is where? Shraddha is in Samsara. Shraddha is where? Shraddha is in seeking outside. In Vishnu Sahasranamam, Sulabha, Suvrada, Siddha. Sulabha, it's available, it's Siddham, it is there. Where? It is within us. Already available. In the Ishavasya Upanishad also, in one of the verses, Taddure, Tadvandige, Tadandarasya, Sarvasya, Tadu, Sarvasyasya Bahyada. So where is that? Where is that truth? That truth is within us. It is contained in us. And that is called as Prajnanam, Avabodham. So that is where the first Mahavakyam comes, Prajnanam, Brahma, from the Aitharaya Upanishad. This awareness itself, this awareness is Brahma. So Prajnanam Brahma as the Lakshana Vakyam. So this truth is where truth is contained in us, called as Avabodham, called as Prajnanam. And this truth is very simple. And what we need to know, that we need Shraddha. And what we are trying to do, we are trying to seek that truth with a complex mind. And we need to understand that this truth is very simple. And we are trying to know this truth through a complex equipment called as mind. So how it is possible to realize the truth? So with a complex mind, we are trying to understand a simple truth. So here the issue is basically the instrument or method is faulty. See, is there a point in measuring very small quantity of a substance using a very big apparatus, the instrument? So that is where we are trying to understand a simple truth through a complex mind, the so-called instrument or method, that is faulty. So we need to gain this knowledge through right understanding. The real I that we are seeking, looking is impersonal. It is personality-less. And what we are at what plane we are at the plane of assumed personality, so called as the Kalpida Samsara. So when we try to know the reality from a plane of cosmic delusion, it is not possible. So what we need is basically we need to come to the plane of consciousness. So because this awareness is conscious awareness. So in the initial part of the second chapter, Bhagavan told about the Tvam Padartha. Hey Arjuna, your self cannot be distracted. That self is eternal, that self is nityam, shashwadam, purnam, avinashi, cannot be distracted. It is nityam, it is eternal, it is ajam, it is unborn, it is avyayam, cannot be changed, it is not subject to change. In Vishnu Sahasranama we can see avyaya purusha sakshi kshetrajnokshara evaja. Avyaya purusha sakshi, sakshi chaitanya. So that is the truth. Whereas the mind is an inert matter. So how will we understand that sakshi chaitanyam with a wrong apparatus, a complex mind, complex apparatus called the mind? So why this delusion comes in the human? Because the mind has got the capability to borrow and reflect the consciousness, and with that we feel that we are of a sentient being. It mind basically borrows, reflect the, basically when I say borrows and reflect, it manifests that consciousness and appear as though sentient. It allows to reflect. So in that process, the real consciousness after a reflection is not known properly. See how the moon reflects the light on a surface of water. So when you see the moon on a water surface, do you see any deterioration until and unless the water is not moving, not having any ripples? The same moon is reflected in that water, correct? Similarly, the consciousness is reflected by the mind, but the quality of the mind matters. If the mind is flickering, right? Similarly, how the moon or the image of the moon gets disturbed or gets perturbed in a moving water surface, similarly the consciousness, which is original, which is undisturbed, which is the embodiment of everything, and when it gets reflected through a mind which is not constant, there is a difference in the experience. So that is where making seemingly sentient, the pratibimba chaitanya, the original chaitanya is reflected, the pratibimba chaitanya. And what happens? The mind has got the capability to color the experiences, because based on the vasanas, based on all the traits. And when the water is still in the pond, the reflection of the moon is almost accurate, correct? So when the mind is still, a resting mind, we can say, is almost closer to the true self. That is where the natural state or a condition comes. That is what we all experience in the sleep daily, correct? The mind is completely absorbed in that natural state where we are not aware of that. That is where we get the complete happiness in the deep sleep. So when we are aware of this, then the mind will start automatically becoming constant. The andakarana noistalyada, the stillness of the mind. With this knowledge only the mind will get set. Otherwise, what happens when we are living with a conditioned mind? What happens is basically we drift away from the real core. We drift away from the true awareness. That is where the confusion comes. The self is confused. The original self is confused with the flickering mind, with the reflected mind. And the nature of mind is basically the reflection is there and it induces the limitations. limitations that come from the world. That is where automatically we get into the mode of slavery. That is the reason of the samsara, that is the reason of bondage. So Vedantam says, forgetfulness of our real nature is the reason for slavery. And that is leading to the absence of peace. That is leading to the drift from the core, leading to the absence of peace. So as human beings, we all are, looking for perfection from outside. When I say human quest for perfection, by nature we look this perfection outside. Whereas, where is this perfection? The true perfection is in the inner realm, the inner realization. Who am I? Who truly am I? Rather than chasing and identifying with the external objects and possessions. So, in these verses of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna is saying that you aim for the self-knowledge, the Tvam Padartha, the real self. Who is this? Who truly are you? Aim at the knowledge of that true self, aiming at the self-knowledge. Then the issues with the mind, the flickering nature, the reflected nature, reflecting nature. So that is where accompanying nature of the mind with the external objects. So that is where one should have the mental mastery. So self-knowledge and mental mastery will only liberate us from the limitations. When we operate in this world, it is quite usual that we identify ourselves with the experience. We identify ourselves with those experiences for the peace and joy. Whereas, when one is aware of the self and the mental mastery is there, that is the beginning of liberation from all limitations. Liberation from the identification. Liberation from the wrong identifications towards the experiences. Those experiences will give different kind of outcomes. Sometimes joy, sometimes very, very disturbed kind of situations. So when we have the quest in us, the human quest for perfection, that perfection will never come from the outside. The experience that you have with that self, the true self, only will give the lasting peace and joy. And we need to be mindful that this perfection is not something to acquire or becoming something or acquire something new. So then what is it? It is all about realizing what one truly already is. Nothing needs to be brought from outside. So the eternal, unchanging self, so called as the Atman, which is the pure bliss, Anandam, which is the consciousness, which is the Brahman. The ultimate perfection lies in this self-realization. And ultimate meaning in life will come when we have freedom from ego and desires. The real perfection involves, that is what we are seeing in these previous verses, the mastery over the body, mind, intellect, sense, ego. Then the gradual elimination of ignorance, mastery over the body, mastery over the mind, mastery over our senses, mastery over our ego. The elimination of our ignorance from where? From the mind, where the ego play happens in the mind. And the ego play is all about bounding or binding us towards the limiting tendencies. So how this can be eliminated? Through the knowledge. Elimination of ignorance through the knowledge. That will kill the ego's play of limiting ourselves to the different tendencies. And third is what? First is mastery, second is basically elimination of the ignorance, third is remaining steadily established in the self. Remaining steadily established in the self with contentment regardless of the external situation. Such a person is called as what? Sthitaprajna. That is what Arjuna asked. So you mentioned about such a person. So who is that person? What is he called as? Sthitaprajna. And what are the traits of such a person? A person of steady wisdom referred here as this Sthitaprajna. This Sthitaprajna Lakshanam is what we are now seeing. Who is the Sthitaprajna? The one who is unshaken, the one who is established in the self-knowledge. And how this Sthitaprajna acts in this world? Sthitaprajna acts in this world as like others. But what is the difference here? That Sthitaprajna acts without attachment or desire. And that Sthitaprajna lives a life that will have the mental equanimity in every condition. And how this mental equanimity comes? Through the knowledge. What is the knowledge? That knowledge is the knowledge of the self and the understanding that the true happiness is the natural state of the self. And the real joy comes from the inner realization. And the real joy is permanent, and that real joy is effortless also. So over a period of time, what happens? The mind becomes steady and pure. The mind will now start. Now the mind will stop running after the desires, after the distractions. So that stillness, Andakarana, Naishchalya or Nishchalada, will only reveal the ever-present bliss of the self. Renunciation and contentment. That is what, these are the real themes which are coming in these verses. Renunciation and contentment, we need to understand that it is not a suppression, it is a natural outcome of the deep knowledge. It's a natural outcome of the deep knowledge and self-awareness that will ultimately lead to the inner freedom and contentment. So when the delusion comes down, when the moham comes down, the sense of separation will automatically come down, and the outcome is basically the connectedness, able to appreciate the connectedness of life will go up. So it is not an outside-in approach. The value of life should not be explored from outside in or through an outside in approach. It has to be an inside out approach. First, to know yourself. Through that Atma Bodha, through the, what is the right word? Through the coherence that we achieve with our deepest core. And that deepest core is basically beyond the space-time object causation. So when we are in connection with that deepest core, the inner guidance will come. That self-awareness, through that self-awareness, that inner guidance will come. The utmost superior, the superior qualities such as the creativity, alertness, all those things will come. And the Sthitaprajna, how that person deals in this world, he is always active yet unattached. It is the inner detachment, not like running away from the life. The inner quality, so called as the inner detachment. So active yet unattached in anything. And what is the utmost quality of the Sthitaprajna? That Sthitaprajna is free from all fetters, whether it is good or bad, not at all disturbed by any situation. So we can see a lot of people around us, right? If they say 6 to 7, I will do meditation and fully dedicated for that. And if the newspaper boy rings the bell for collecting the monthly money, this person will go wild because I was doing meditation. How come you are disturbing me? Not at all disturbed by anything, free from all fetters. So with that context, let us now explore these verses today, 57, 58, 59, 60, up to 61 we will try to cover today. Verse number 57. Ya sarvatra anabhisneha tattat prapya shubhashubham nabhinandadi nadveshti tasya prajna pradishtita. Ya sarvatra anabhisneha. The one who is without attachment in all situations, tad prapya shubha ashubham. Whatever prapya, coming, gaining, whether it's shubham or ashubham, pleasant or unpleasant, na abhinandadi na dveshti, will not rejoice too much, na dveshti, will not hate, tasya prajna pradishtita. So that person's knowledge is very well established. The one who is not attached anywhere, the one who is neither overjoyed by the shubha ashubham, overjoyed by the auspicious, or neither overjoyed by the auspicious nor dejected by the inauspicious, is poised in the wisdom. Whose wisdom is steady, whose wisdom is established, perfectly detached. Right? When I say perfectly detached, when favorable things happen, not elated so much, unfavorable, not at all depressed. There is a full control of mind. Now, in the modern age, we all use this, we all are living in this tawa culture. Tawa, this cooking pan, non-stick pan. We all use this tawa, right? Tawa, I think this is the right word, tawa, right? Non-stick pan. Non-stick. So, Sthitaprajna is like a tawa. Right? We all should become like a non-stick pan. What is that? It will never create a stickiness. Whether the dosa batter is loose or thick or whatever is it will never get attached, or it will not allow the dosa to stick. So, ya sarvatra anabhisneha, who is unattached anywhere. When I say unattached, it is not just a philosophical statement. With the right knowledge, what is nityam, what is anityam. So, unattached to tat prapya shubha shubham. No trigger can shake the mental equanimity of Sthitaprajna. No wave from outside can shake the equipoise of this Sthitaprajna. Na abhinandadi na dveshti. Neither delights when good things happen. Doesn't mean that he will not smile or laugh. Not going beyond the boundaries of elation. Nor go into the depression, nadveshti, or nor run away from the pain that comes in the life. And what is the meaning here? This person is ever ready to receive anything in life. Tasya prajna pradishtita. So his this knowledge is integrated in the self. This knowledge is what the Atmajnana or the Atmanubhuti. In that knowledge, this Sthitaprajna stays undisturbed. So, the knowledge, very important. Here, the attachment as a door to samsara, right? Let's take the example of a door. Door is what? Door is the avenue to close or open. So, a perfect man will know when to close the door. If the door is open, what happens? The attachment as a door to the samsara. When the door is closed, this man is in perfection. This man knows when to close the door, when to open the door. That is where the emotional balance comes. So the door, right, the opening and the closing of the door represents a calm mind. Right opening and closing of the door represents a calm mind that will see the reality clearly and will make better decisions in life. One of the examples that I have in my mind, when Dr. Abdul Kalam, when he was the president of our nation, once he delivered a lecture at a university, and immediately after this lecture, a reporter asked him, "Sir, how are you remaining so humble? How you remain so humble despite being the president of India, and you are a famous scientist. You also possess a lot of credentials from the professional world, being a president of India, being a famous scientist, and also admired by millions. So how you remain humble despite of these big positions or the elements of power that you have?" So there Dr. Kalam smiled gently and replied, "If I take all the praise people give me, and they are also serious, then I should also take every criticism seriously. If that is the case, in both cases, what will happen? I will lose my balance. So instead of that, what I do? I stay natural. I simply focus on the work and duty that is given to me. This is the Prajna Lakshana." Another example, you all know this, the people's car, Tata Nano. When it got launched, it was known as the common man's car, the people's car. And there was a lot of huge praise. But then we saw the problems encountered with that project, Tata Nano, right? Especially the burning issues, the safety concerns. Also, a lot amount of negative news media also started reporting, and so ultimately what happened? The sales got affected. The poor salespeople stopped buying. So at that time, one of the reporters asked Mr. Ratan Tata whether he got or he felt disappointed, because that was a dream project, correct, and that got failed. So that's where at that point Ratan Tata told, "Yeah, I am not seeing, or I don't see a failure here. Right? We tried our level best. Something new, We launched and we learned. We learned the mistakes that came out of that. And then we are now moving on. That is where the equanimity, right? The equanimity is the true power that we all should have. And we should also understand that the balance is not in avoiding the ups and downs. Balance is to manage the ups and downs. And what is balance? Balance is a situation where we are not tossed around by the ups and downs. And the strongest person is the one who will always balance this, who win always, right? In terms of balancing the situation. Not like a strongest person is the one who will always win in life, win in the sense getting only positive outcomes. The strongest person is not the one who win always, but the one who stays steady always, whether it is positive or negative. That is the meaning of this verse number 57, verse 58. Yada samharade chayam kurmongani vasarvasha indriyani indriyartebhya tasya prajna pradishtita. Yada samharade chayam. Right. So this person is having the capability to withdraw, like a kurmam. Kurmam is turtle. Angani, right? Where it angam is based. Angani is the limbs, like sarvasha. So indriyani, indriya arthebhya. So the sense organs, the real sense organs, are withdrawn, like a turtle that will withdraw the limbs when it undergoes a fearful situation or a bad situation. So when a person withdraws his senses from the sense object, just as a tortoise that withdraws its limbs. So it's a very powerful metaphor that Bhagavan Krishna is giving here. Tortoise as a turtle, as a being that has got the mastery to withdraw whenever is needed. So similarly, a Sthitaprajna is having the capability to withdraw, and such withdrawal capability or control is there within, and that control leads to the inner freedom and stability of mind. So it's very, very applicable in this modern world, digital world, constant notification, constant temptations, distractions. So the example of a turtle or a tortoise is very important here. So what is this? Kurma angani iva sarvasha. So here withdrawal of limbs, meaning in our practical world, turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off or turn your phone into aeroplane mode, or switch off the data, mobile data during night. Be away from the screen at least before your sleep, at least 1 hour. Don't get tempted, don't get distracted. So Bhagavan's metaphor is very powerful here. So the true strength is not running behind every attraction. But what is the true strength? It is basically the ability to pause, ability to withdraw, ability to choose consciously what is right, what is wrong, ability to be away from the distractions, ability to withdraw from the destructive impulses. So the story of Gandhiji during the freedom struggle, Gandhiji faced a lot of insult and attacks at some point. So there he had the power to withdraw his senses like a tortoise. And what he said in response to those sort of torture, I will not let anyone to make my mind dirty. I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. So what is really needed? Kurma angani iva sarvasha. Just as tortoise withdraws its four legs, its head, for what? To protect itself. So it's basically the protection, the self-protection that we have to do without going into the destruction, right? So self-protection from the danger. Similarly, the Sthitaprajna withdraws the mind and five senses to protect himself or herself from all distractions from outside. Sthitaprajna will do what? Hold back the senses from the running objects, because the senses will run to their destined objects. So the Sthitaprajna will have the control to hold back the senses from running to their prescribed objects. So hold the senses and at the same time trace the mind back to its source. So with that knowledge only this holding back and tracing back will happen. So when the real I is sourced, or when the real I is tracked back, the mind is not going after the objects. So the superficial I is diverted to the real I. What happens? The ego will go away, the ego will sink. And the real I is what? The real I is embodiment of everything, including the utter silence. That is what we all do in the deep sleep. There is no noise in the deep sleep. So such a person's tasya prajna pradishtita, wisdom becomes steady. That is where the emotional and situational stability comes in that person. Verse number 59. Vishaya vinivartande niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartade. Vishaya vinivartande niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasa abhi asya param drishtva nivartade. For the abstinent man, the sense objects drop out. So if it is very logical, if somebody is not enjoying that, the dropout will happen. But the real taste, the rasam or the attraction for those sense objects will further remain in that person, though those objects are not looked at, or we can say though not longing for them. So when one abstains from those, still the taste, the rasa or attraction can remain. But that longing will also disappear when that man experiences what? When that man experiences the Supreme. Param, correct? Param drishtva nivartade. So having seen the real truth, the Brahman, Param nivartade, goes away. So leaving the rasa varjan, rasa abhi asya. even longing things of this person will go away when the wise, this person, sees the truth within, the param drishtva. So the first step is basically abstinence. We can say one way it's a suppression, but that suppression alone will not work. Maybe that suppression can avoid these temptations for some time, right? For example, if we decide that we will not eat from outside, but that inner craving often remains. So suppression alone will not help. Suppression alone is not, or suppression is not enough. So what is needed with the knowledge? What happens? What is that? What knowledge is this? The higher joy is what I am looking at. And where is that higher joy? Higher joy is within me. And when the mind is trained to experience that higher joy, the higher taste, at that point of time, the lower cravings that were there in the mind will start losing their pull. So sense control alone is not sufficient. Sense control plus the higher vision, that is where the knowledge comes. But let me bring a practical example. You see, when somebody gets diagnosed with, say, the diabetes, right? The doctors usually say don't consume sugar. And in the medical world, these white things are always, prohibitory, including the white sugar, right? Refined sugar. So what people will do, a doctor said don't consume sugar. So they may give up sugar for the sake of diabetic treatment, but still the desires are there. Whenever they get a chance, maybe the Ona Sandhya or Diwali festival, that craving still will come. The desire for the sweet or the sweetness will stay in them. But let me ask a question to you. If you start loving the taste of the tea without the sugar, do you really need sugar to be added? No. So with this, what you call the discovery of the deeper real taste of a tea will automatically throw out the craving for the sweetness, correct? So similarly, the desire for sweetness will stay in them until they discover the deeper fulfillment. So, willpower alone will not be sufficient. Willpower is a suppression, I would say. Willpower with the higher vision, with the knowledge, that is where the true transformation happens. The true transformation comes and substitutes the suppression. What happens at that point of time? The lower pleasures will go, the lower pleasures will get replaced with the higher meaning, higher ones. That is where deprivation to elevation or suppression to sublimation happens. Removing the sense objects with the right knowledge. Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivega. That is where Shruti says Jnana Devadu Kaivalyam. For the Kaivalya Prapti, the Jnanam is needed. So rasam from the world objects to what you call rasam in the verily truth within us. This is basically the transcendental journey. So Sthitaprajna Lakshana is basically what? This transcendental journey to the real rasam, What is that rasam? The rasam is verily the true nature within me, that God, that Brahman, that Atman. Verse number 60. Yadado hebi kaunteya purushasya vipaschida indriyani pramadhini harandi prasabham manaha yadan yadado hebi kaunteya yadada hi abhi kaunteya purushasya vipaschida indriyani pramadhini harandi prasabham manaha. So, even for a wise person, even for a Sthitaprajna, who is a jnani, who strives for self-control, there can be situation that the turbulent senses can forcibly carry away the mind. That is where Bhagavan says abhyasam is always needed. The wise will also experience this kind of a turbulent situation. The wise will also exercise, wise will also need this immense effort in keeping the mind and senses under the control. That's where here the term purushasya, the word purushasya, the man with immense willpower, the one who needs commitment, the one who needs to put the constant effort to gain that firmness within. So, control of indriya plus jnananishta plus abhyasam is the Sthitaprajna. Control of indriyam, control of indriyas, the efforts, and the jnananishta. So that is where when one will reach to a state that events around me will not determine my happiness. That is where the real taking charge of the self happens. So the real taking charge of the self comes when one moves away from the power of ego to the power of grace. Right? The control of indriya, jnananishta and abhyasam will reach the Sthitaprajnatvam. That is where the one moves away from the power of ego to the power of grace. So here, constant abhyasam is needed, need constant vigilance, need constant practice, need to have the higher focus always. It is a lifelong practice. Right? So even the person, the purushasya vipaschida, one who sees this clearly, he will also see this kind of turbulence where the mind will forcibly take away the power. So what is needed? Effort, consistent effort is needed. Verse number 61. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta sida matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pradishtida. So how one can move away from the scattered mind to a gathered mind? So having restrained all the senses, here the term is what? Term is Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asida matpara vashehi yasya indriyani. So here the yogi should sit with the mind united, focused on the Supreme. A yogi with senses under control, such a person's wisdom is firmly established. So here, mind, we can say it is a wild horse. What is needed for a wild horse? We need to tame the horse. And how the taming should happen? Taming should happen with the Shastra and the Guru. Need the right guidance. So what is the right approach? So we need to have the senses under control and keep the mind under focus. Focus on what? Focus on the divine. Such a person will get established in the steady wisdom. Such a person is called Sthitaprajna. So, practice of sense control plus devotion will reach or will lead to inner steadiness and self-realization. Practice of sense control. So we have seen that the indriyam, control of indriyam, jnana-nishta will lead to Sthitaprajnatvam. Now we say practice of sense control plus devotion will lead to inner steadiness and self-realization. That is where the Shamadhi, Shatka Sambhati, Shamam, Damam, Uparadi, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam. Shamam is what? The control of mind, mind control, which is very much needed to restrain distractions. Damam is what? Sense control, restraining all the senses. Uparati is basically what? Withdrawal, further withdrawal that will support the sense and mind restraint. Titiksha is the capability to endure the difficulties. Shraddha is what? Shraddha in that higher wisdom, Shraddha in the faith, Shraddha in the practice, Shraddha in the spiritual focus. Samadhanam. Samadhanam is the one-pointed concentration. So here the verse 61 says that you need to follow the Shamam, Damam with the Bhakti. So Shamam and Damam are the two facets or two dimensions towards the foundation for self-mastery and inner progress. So such a person will always anchor the mind to higher ideal, and for such a person this discipline will become joyful, and such a person is called a yogi or a Sthitaprajna. So up till here the Sthitaprajna Lakshanam Bhagavan is explaining. So with that we will conclude our session today. Om Tamadbhudam Balagamam Bhujekshanam Chadurbhujam Shangagadadyudayidam Srivalsalakshmam Gadajhobhikaustubam Pidambaram Sandrapayodasaubhagam Maharhavaidurya Kirida Kundalatusha Parishakta Sahasragundalam Uddhamaganjangadagankanaadivi Virojamanam Vasudeva Ikshada Om Yadahi Bhagavaneva Vastudasa Sache Satyena Anena Nasarve Yanduna Shamavudrava Om Krishnaya Vasudevaya Hare Paramatmane Pranadakleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namah.